You won't believe what I caught my neighbor doing. It all started on a normal Monday morning. The sun had just risen, and I stepped outside with a cup of coffee in my hand, ready to start my day. I looked at my driveway, the street, my solar panels gleaming in the golden light, and everything seemed perfectly normal. But later that day, when I logged into my solar monitoring app, I noticed something strange. My energy usage graph looked off. Way off. My panels had been producing plenty of power, but the usage spike was triple what it usually was. At first, I thought maybe it was a glitch in the app. Maybe the sensors were misreporting. But then I checked my electricity bill, and my jaw almost dropped. I wasn't just using a little more power. I was burning through way more than a single-person household ever should. The craziest part? I wasn't even home for most of the day. I worked long hours, and my appliances were energy efficient. So where was all that power going? That's when the suspicion crept in. I started keeping an eye on my property. I told myself, maybe it's just a technical issue. Maybe one of the panels is faulty. But something in my gut told me it wasn't that simple. The very next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, around 5:30 a.m. The sky was still gray, the neighborhood quiet, and that's when I saw it. A sleek, shiny Tesla parked suspiciously close to my driveway. My neighbor's Tesla. And running across the lawn, almost hidden behind my bushes, was a thick black charging cable plugged directly into my solar outlet. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. She wasn't just borrowing an outlet in the middle of an emergency. She had planned this. She had been sneaking over. Plugging her car in like my solar grid was her personal gas station. For a second, I thought, no way. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. But then I saw her, Karen, standing on her porch across the street, casually sipping her coffee, glancing at her Tesla, like it was the most normal thing in the world. That's when the anger hit me. I had spent thousands of dollars investing in those solar panels. I had researched the best insulation, waited for permits, even dealt with the annoying HOA paperwork to get approval. I wanted to cut down my bills, go green, maybe even sell a little extra power back to grid. And here was my neighbor, treating all that effort like her personal piggy bank. I decided to test something. I waited until she went back inside, then walked slowly toward the cable. My heart was pounding. Sure enough, the Tesla was charging at full capacity, on my dime. Unbelievable, I muttered under my breath. I yanked the plug out. The car's lights flickered, signaling the charge had stopped. And that's when it happened. Karen came storming out of her house like I had just vandalized her property. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" she snapped, glaring at me like I was a thief. I held up the cable and said, "What am I doing? What are you doing? This is my outlet, my power, my solar grid. You can't just plug in whenever you want." Her face didn't even twitch with guilt. Instead, she actually laughed. "Oh, come on. You've got more than enough. The sun gives you unlimited energy, right? It's not like you're running out." I was stunned. She was acting like I was the unreasonable one here. "This isn't free." I shot back. "I paid for the panels, the installation, the maintenance. That energy belongs to me, not the neighborhood. If you need to charge your car, install your own station." Karen rolled her eyes. "Don't be so stingy. It's just electricity. You wouldn't even notice if I didn't tell you." That was the last straw. "No," I said firmly. "This ends now. Stay off my property and stop stealing my power." She gave me this smug little smirk, unplugged her Tesla, and walked away without another word. But the look in her eyes told me one thing. She wasn't planning to stop. And sure enough, the very next morning, her Tesla was back. That's when I knew this wasn't an accident. It wasn't some misunderstanding. This was intentional theft, calculated, repeated, and shameless. And in that moment, I realized something else. Karen wasn't just stealing electricity. She was challenging me. She thought I couldn't do anything about it. She thought she could keep plugging in forever, and I'd just let it slide. But she was wrong. Dead wrong. Because if Karen wanted to play this game, I was going to play it smarter. When I finally confronted her for the first time, I expected at least a little bit of shame, maybe even a quick apology. I mean, Most people would feel embarrassed if they were caught red-handed stealing electricity, right? But not Karen. She leaned against her shiny white Tesla, crossed her arms, and actually laughed in my face. "It's just electricity," she said, like it was the funniest thing in the world. "Don't be so stingy. You make more than you need anyway." I blinked, stunned. Was she serious? This isn't a free-for-all. I shot back. This is my system. I paid for it. I maintain it. You don't get to just help yourself whenever you feel like it. Karen smirked, sipping her overpriced iced coffee like she was starring in her own reality show. "Oh, please. You're acting like I drained your bank account. The sun shines for everyone, doesn't it? You can't own sunlight." That line almost made me choke. You can't own sunlight? She was using that as her defense? "Sure," I said, struggling to keep my voice calm, "but I can own the panels, the wiring, the batteries. All of this? I paid thousands of dollars for it. And you," I pointed at the charging cable in her car. "You're using it without permission? That's theft." Her smirk disappeared for half a second, replaced by a flash of annoyance. But then she shrugged like it was no big deal. "You should be thanking me," she said. "I'm just making sure your extra power doesn't go to waste." I couldn't believe it. She had actually flipped the narrative to make herself sound like some kind of hero. "Karen," I said flatly, "unplug your car right now, and don't ever do this again." For a moment, we locked eyes. It was like a silent standoff in the middle of the street. My fists were clenched. My blood was boiling, and she just stared at me with that smug expression that only someone like Karen could pull off. Finally, she sighed dramatically, like I was ruining her day. She walked over, unplugged the Tesla, coiled up the cord, and muttered under her breath, "You're being ridiculous." But before walking away, she added one last jab. "You'll calm down eventually. It's just power." And with that, she turned on her heel and strolled back to her house, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. That night, I felt relieved. I thought maybe, just maybe, she had gotten the message. I even told myself I was being too paranoid. But the next morning I woke up, stretched, and peeked out my window. And there it was, Karen's Tesla, once again plugged into my solar grid. I felt my stomach drop. The sight was like a punch to the gut. She had ignored everything I said, every warning, every ounce of common sense. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a one-time, oops. This was intentional. She was deliberately stealing my power every single day, like it was her personal right. The worst part? She knew I saw her. As I stepped outside, she waved at me from across the street, wearing the smuggest grin you could imagine. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. She wanted me to know. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. I wanted to march over there and yank the cable out of her car again, but I stopped myself. This was bigger than just unplugging her Tesla. This was about principle. Because if she could laugh in my face today, what would stop her from sneaking in tomorrow? Or next week? Or forever? I started noticing little things, too. Every time she drove past my house, she'd glance at my panels. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear footsteps near the side of my yard. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but when I checked my cameras, sure enough, Karen's silhouette sneaking up to connect her car when she thought I was asleep. She wasn't just stealing electricity anymore. She was trespassing. I couldn't help but feel this mix of fury and disbelief. I had invested in solar to save money, help the environment, and maybe gain a little independence from the power company. Instead, my neighbor was treating it like a free buffet. And the fact that she didn't care, that she laughed in my face when I confronted her, that's what really burned me. I realized then that Karen didn't just see me as a neighbor. She saw me as a resource, a convenience, someone she could use whenever it suited her. And that realization lit a fire in me, because I wasn't just going to stop her. I was going to make sure she never tried it again. She thought she was clever, sneaking over with her Tesla, plugging in when I wasn't looking. She thought she had beaten me, but I was already planning my next move. And when it was ready, she wouldn't be laughing anymore. Now, I'm not the type to get walked over. I've dealt with enough petty HOA nonsense over the years, and one thing I've learned is this. If you let people take advantage of you once, they'll keep doing it forever. Karen wasn't going to stop just because I told her to. She needed to be shown that my solar grid wasn't her free charger, and I needed to do it in a way she'd never forget. That's when the idea hit me. Instead of fighting her every morning, unplugging her Tesla like some kind of babysitter, I decided to get smart. I picked up the phone and called my old friend Mike, an electrician I've known for years. If anyone could help me find a clever, legal way to stop Karen's theft, it was him. When I explained the situation, Mike laughed so hard I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Wait. Let me get this straight, he said between chuckles. Your neighbor is literally siphoning power from your solar system to charge her luxury car? Exactly, I groaned. And when I confronted her, she acted like it was a community service. Like I should be thanking her for plugging in. Oh, buddy, Mike said, still laughing. This is too good. Okay, yeah, I think I've got just a thing for you. The next evening, he pulled into my driveway in his work van, toolbox in hand. We went straight to the breaker room, and I showed him how Karen had been sneaking her cord into the side outlet of my solar grid. He shook his head, whistling. Man, she's got some nerve. All right, here's what we're going to do. Mike explained the trick like he was revealing a magician's secret. Electric cars like Teslas are designed to expect a steady, regulated voltage when they charge. The onboard computer checks the current, and if it's safe, it charges. But the voltage is unstable, too high, or fluctuates. The system shuts down automatically to protect the car. It doesn't damage anything, but it makes charging impossible. Think of it like trying to drink from a fire hose, Mike said with a grin. The car takes one sip, realizes it's about to drown, and just says nope. I laughed. So you're saying we can rig this outlet to confuse her Tesla? Exactly, he said. We'll install a regulator with a manual switch. To you, it'll look like a normal outlet. But the second she plugs in, you can flip that switch and send her car into shutdown mode. She won't get a single drop of your power. I couldn't help but smile. It was genius. We spent the next couple of hours working side by side, running wires, testing the system, and installing a small control panel inside my garage. It had one simple lever, up for normal operation, down for maximum chaos. At one point, I asked, "This isn't going to hurt her car, right? I don't need a lawsuit." Mike shook his head confidently. Nope. Tesla built those things like tanks. The worst that'll happen is she gets a flashing error message and can't charge. Totally safe, totally legal, and totally hilarious. When we finally tested it, I felt like a kid with a new toy. Mike plugged in a dummy load to simulate a car charging. The lights went green, the system hummed, and then I pulled the lever. Instantly, the lights turned red and the charging stopped. I burst out laughing. Oh man, this is perfect. She's gonna lose her mind. Mike clapped me on the back. Just promise me one thing. When it happens, you record it. I want to see her face. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the plan in my head. I imagined Karen sneaking over with her smug little smirk, thinking she was getting away with it again. I pictured her plugging in, waiting for her free charge, and then watching the whole thing fail. I couldn't help grinning. For once, I wasn't dreading her stealing my power. I was actually waiting for it. The best part? She had no idea. She thought I was just going to keep arguing, keep unplugging her car, keep getting angrier while she laughed it off. She had no clue that the next time she tried, the system itself would fight back. It wasn't just a trap. It was poetic justice. I even practiced what I'd say if she confronted me. Something calm, something cool. Maybe I'd shrug and say, "Guess your car doesn't like free rides anymore." Or maybe I'd just smile and walk away while she fumed. The anticipation was delicious. By the time I finally drifted off to sleep, I felt more at peace than I had in weeks. For the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't a victim. I wasn't the guy being taken advantage of. I was the guy with the switch. And Karen? She was about to find out what happens when you mess with someone else's solar power. Sure enough, a few nights later, my chance came. It was a little after midnight. The house was quiet, the neighborhood still. I was half asleep on the couch when I noticed a faint glow through my curtains. A low hum, headlights creeping toward my driveway. I peeked through the blinds, and there it was, the sleek silhouette of Karen's Tesla sliding into the shadows, parking close enough to my outlet that she wouldn't have to stretch the cable. She thought she was being slick, moving slow, lights dimmed like she was in some kind of spy movie. But the truth was, she looked ridiculous, like a burglar who didn't realize the cameras were rolling. I crouched down, heart pounding with adrenaline. I had been waiting for this moment ever since Mike installed that switch. This was it, the showdown. Karen got out of her car, looking around carefully. She probably thought everyone in the neighborhood was asleep. She dragged the thick charging cable across my lawn, crouched near the side of my house, and plugged it into my solar outlet with the smug confidence of someone who believed they owned the place. She dusted her hands off like she'd just accomplished something. Then she straightened up, staring at her car as if it was about to reward her with free power. That's when I made my move. I crept to the breaker room, my bare feet silent on the floor. My fingers hovered over the small lever Mike had installed just for this occasion. My pulse quickened. I smiled. And then, click, instantly, the Tesla let out a sharp error beep. Its charging light, which had been glowing a calm, steady green, suddenly blinked red. The hum of energy cut off like someone had yanked the plug from the wall. I stifled a laugh as I peeked through the small window in the garage door. Karen frowned. She tilted her head, confused, then crouched back down. She unplugged the charger, shook it, and plugged it back in. The light flickered green for half a second, then snapped red again with a loud beep. Her face twisted. I leaned against the wall, biting my lip to keep from laughing. She tried again, and again. Unplug, plug in, wait, error, red light, beep. Her frustration grew with every failed attempt. Soon she was muttering under her breath, pacing circles around the Tesla. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught a few choice ones. Definitely not thank you or sorry. Finally, she smacked the side of her car in rage. The hollow thud echoed in the quiet night. I almost lost it right there. Watching her slap her own Tesla, like it was a car's fault she was stealing power, was comedy gold. But the show wasn't over. Karen crouched down again, fiddling with the plug like maybe she could outsmart the outlet. She even pulled out her phone flashlight, shining it into connector, as if dirt or dust was the issue. All the while, I stood inside, hand on the lever, controlling her fate with the flick of my finger. Every time she thought maybe it would work, I gave the switch another little nudge. Voltage spiked, car shut down, red light screamed, nope. It was beautiful. Minutes ticked by. 5, 10. Her shoulders sagged lower and lower with each failed attempt. She muttered louder now, cursing under her breath, stomping her feet in frustration. At one point, she even looked up at the sky and whispered angrily, "Why is this happening?" As if the universe itself was betraying her. No, Karen, not the universe. Just me. After what felt like an eternity of comedy, she finally ripped the charger out with dramatic yank, tossed it back toward her car, and stomped across my lawn. Her face was red with anger, and even from inside, I could see her teeth clenched. She slammed her car door shut, so hard the sound echoed through the neighborhood. The Tesla roared to life, headlights flaring angrily, and she peeled away down the street, still with an empty battery. And me? I stood there in the dark, laughing until my stomach hurt. For weeks, she had stolen my power, mocking me like I couldn't do anything about it. But tonight, the tables had turned. Tonight, my solar grid, my investment, my hard work had beaten her Tesla. And the best part? She had no clue how. She'd go home thinking her car was broken, or that the outlet had mysteriously stopped working. Maybe she'd even schedule a service appointment and spend money just to figure out nothing was wrong. Meanwhile, I knew the truth. She had walked into my trap. And as I closed the breaker room door and headed back to bed, I couldn't stop smiling. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I slept like a baby, because Karen's free ride was officially over. The very next morning, just as the sun was coming up, my peace was shattered by loud, angry banging on my front door. Bang! 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 I opened it to find Karen standing there, red-faced, hair frazzled, looking like she hadn't slept all night. Her arms were crossed, and her voice was already at full volume before I could even say hello. "What did you do to my car?" she screeched. "It won't charge on your stupid panels anymore." Her voice carried across the entire neighborhood. Curtains rustled as other neighbors peeked out to watch the show. I leaned casually against the doorframe and looked her dead in the eye. My calmness only made her angrier, because I said slowly with a little smirk, "It's not your energy to take. Call it karma." Her mouth dropped open. For a moment, she was speechless, which was a miracle in itself. But then she found her voice again. "This is harassment," she shouted. "You can't just deny me access to power. I'll have the HOA deal with you." She jabbed a finger at me like she was making some kind of official declaration. I couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, please, Karen. The HOA? You mean the same HOA that already made me fill out 10 forms just to install my solar panels? Go ahead, call them. Let's see how that works out for you." Her face twisted with rage. "I will," she screamed before storming off my porch. Now, here's where Karen made her biggest mistake. She thought she had the upper hand. She thought she could run to the HOA, play the victim, and get me fined instead. That's her usual trick: complain loud enough, act entitled enough, and hope people give in just to shut her up. But this time, I was way ahead of her. You see, I had installed security cameras months ago, mainly for peace of mind, and those cameras have been catching everything. Karen sneaking onto my property, plugging her car in at night, stealing energy over and over again. When Karen found out, she stormed past my house, yelling into her phone about how unfair it all was. I could barely contain my laughter. But it didn't end there, because the HOA also gave her an ultimatum. If she wanted to charge her Tesla, she had to install her own charging station on her property. And those things aren't cheap. Between the electrician fees, permits, and installation, she ended up shelling out thousands of dollars just to do what she should have done in the first place. The irony was delicious. She had spent weeks stealing my power, thinking she was saving money. And now, she had lost more than she ever saved. These days, every time Karen drives past my house, I can see the bitterness on her face. She avoids eye contact, gripping the steering wheel a little too tightly, pretending like I don't exist. But I can't help it. I grin every single time, because she thought she could freeload forever. She thought she could bully her way into taking what wasn't hers. Instead, she ended up paying thousands more than she ever would have if she had just done the right thing from the start. That's karma. And you know what? There's a lesson here. When people think they can take advantage of you, they will keep pushing until you finally push back. Karen thought I'd just roll over and let her keep stealing. But by standing my ground and with a little creativity, I turned the tables. She didn't just get caught. She got embarrassed, fined, and forced to spend her own money fixing the problem she created. So the moral of the story? Never mess with someone else's property, especially when it's connected to a solar grid. Because sometimes, karma comes in the form of a neighbor with a hidden switch. This is Try Next HOA Stories, where the craziest neighbor tales come to life. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or who knows, maybe the next HOA Karen could be living right next to you.